She's standing right there, giving you every signal short of a neon sign, and you walk away thinking she's just being friendly, only to replay it later in the shower and realize she was into you. You just didn't know how to read it. You see, women rarely say, "I like you" out loud, not because they're playing games, though sometimes they are, but because attraction, for them, is something they show before they say. The problem is, most guys are fluent in words and completely illiterate in everything else, so they miss it every time. But I spent a long time studying this. I've gone deep into behavioral psychology, sat with research from Dr. Albert Mehrabian's work on nonverbal communication, and broken down patterns across hundreds of real interactions. And what I found is both obvious in hindsight and wildly overlooked in the moment. By the end of this video, you'll know exactly how to read what she's communicating without words, so you never miss the signal again. But if you want to know not just whether she's attracted to you, but whether she's using you, playing games, or actually serious, I wrote a book called The Truth Detector. First link in the description. People have told me it changed how they see every interaction with women, but we'll come back to that. Now, sign number 1. Picture this. You're in a group. She's across the room talking to her friend. You say something, not even to her, just to the group, and you catch it out of the corner of your eye. She glances over, just for a second, then looks away like she wasn't watching at all. You probably told yourself it meant nothing. But what's actually happening inside her head at that moment? Research on social attention, particularly work built on evolutionary psychology, tells us that humans unconsciously track the people they're most drawn to. It's not a decision. It's a reflex. The brain flags certain people as high priority and monitors them without you even noticing you're doing it. So when she keeps glancing at you when you're not looking, it's not random. Her brain has already decided you're worth watching. But the dangerous part? Most guys need the signal to be loud before they believe it. So they wait for something obvious, a direct compliment, a hand on the arm, an outright invitation. And while they're waiting, she's standing there thinking, why isn't he doing anything? And then her interest quietly dies. You got a window, and most men don't even realize the window was open until it's already shut. So what does repeated, subtle glancing actually look like versus a girl who's just casually scanning the room? The difference is in the return. A girl who's just looking around doesn't come back to you. But a girl who's attracted, she looks away, and then she looks again. It's a loop. And once you know what you're watching for, you'll start seeing it everywhere. That's sign 1. But the second sign is sneakier, and most guys misread it completely. In fact, the way men typically respond to it actually kills the attraction on the spot. She laughs at something you said. Not a polite laugh, a real one. Maybe she even touches your arm while she does it. You feel good. You think, she's into me. So you lean in. You get warmer. You start validating everything she says. You agree with her opinions. You compliment her smile. You match her energy like a mirror. Feels natural, right? Feels like connection. But in the span of about 90 seconds, you told her that her approval is enough to change your behavior. She laughed, and you softened. She touched you, and you opened up completely. So now she knows, without you saying a single word, that she already has you. The chase is over. And the second the chase is over, something shifts in her. Because attraction doesn't survive certainty. It runs on tension. The moment you become predictable, you become forgettable. Dr. Robert Cialdini, the psychologist behind Influence, one of the most studied books on human behavior ever written, spent years documenting how scarcity drives desire. Not just in marketing, in people, in relationships. When something feels available, easy, guaranteed, we value it less. That's not a flaw in her character. That's just how the human brain is wired. Yours too, by the way. So sign number 2 is this. She's physically mirroring you. She leans when you lean. She laughs when you laugh. She finds reasons to close the distance between your bodies. And the reason this is a sign she'll never say out loud is because she probably doesn't even know she's doing it. Mirroring is subconscious. It happens when the brain has already decided it likes something and starts syncing up to it. But the mistake is thinking the right response to that signal is to rush in and match it. So here's what actually works, and it feels almost wrong the first time you try it. You don't mirror back right away. You stay at your own pace. You respond warmly, but you don't chase. You let there be a small gap between her energy and yours, because that gap is where tension lives, and tension is what keeps her leaning in further. Think about the last time someone was really hard to read. someone whose interest you couldn't quite confirm. Chances are you thought about them more than the person who made it obvious. That's the dynamic. You're not trying to be cold, you're just refusing to be so readable that there's nothing left for her to figure out. But here's the sign that trips guys up the most, and I need you to pay attention here because this one is counterintuitive in a way that genuinely surprised me when I first understood it. She starts teasing you, not flirting, teasing. She makes fun of your shoes. She calls out something you said last week. She rolls her eyes at your joke and then laughs at it anyway. And most guys, when this happens, either get defensive or try to over-explain themselves. Both are the wrong move. Both kill it. Here's what's actually happening. Teasing is a test, not a conscious one. She's not sitting there strategically plotting, but somewhere underneath the surface, she's poking at you to see how solid you are. Does he flinch? Does he need me to be nice to him to feel okay? Does he get rattled? Because a man who can be rattled by a playful jab is a man who needs her approval to feel stable. And a man who needs her approval is a man she can't fully respect. It's brutal, but it's true. The guys who handle teasing with a grin, who fire something back without taking the bait, who stay completely unbothered, those are the guys she ends up thinking about later. There's a reason she's not teasing the guys she doesn't care about. Think about it. When was the last time you went out of your way to poke someone you weren't interested in? You don't bother, you just ignore them. Teasing takes energy, it takes attention, and she's giving you hers. So the next time she gives you a hard time about something small, your order at the restaurant, the music you like, the way you told a story, don't defend yourself. Don't over-explain. Smile like you've heard worse, because that smile, that steadiness, is exactly what she was checking for. Screenshot this one. Try it next time she takes a shot at something. Then drop what happened in the comments. I want to know how she reacted. But there's a behavior that almost every guy overlooks completely because it doesn't look like attraction. It looks like the opposite. She goes quiet around you. Not cold, just quieter than she is with everyone else. You watch her laughing loud with her friends, totally relaxed, totally herself. Then you walk over and something shifts. She straightens up slightly. She chooses her words more carefully. She's still warm, but there's a kind of alertness there that wasn't there a second ago. And most guys read that as disinterest. She's not comfortable around me. She doesn't like me. So they back off, give her space, maybe stop trying altogether. But here's what's actually going on. People get nervous around things that matter to them. You don't rehearse what you're going to say to someone you don't care about. You don't sit up straighter for someone whose opinion means nothing. Nervousness isn't the absence of attraction. In a lot of cases, it is the attraction. It's just dressed up in a way that looks like she's pulling away when she's actually pulling in. Research in social psychology points to something called evaluation apprehension, the heightened self-awareness people feel when they believe someone important is watching them. She's not distant, she's being careful because she doesn't want to mess this up, because you matter enough to her that messing it up would actually hurt. Think about that for a second. She's guarded around you because she cares. That's a sign most men spend months missing. The thing that separates nervous because she likes you from uncomfortable because she doesn't, is what happens when you ease up. When you say something light, something easy, something that takes the pressure off. If she exhales, if the laugh that comes out is a little too relieved to be casual, if her shoulders drop half an inch, that's your answer. She wasn't cold. She was waiting for permission to relax. Now here's where it gets interesting, because sign number 5 is the one women are least aware they're doing, and it's also the one that carries the most weight if you know how to read it. She finds reasons to bring you up in conversation when you're not there. Her friends mention it before she does. Oh, she talks about you, and she immediately acts embarrassed, changes the subject, denies it more than the situation calls for. Or maybe you find out through someone else that she mentioned you, referenced something you said, brought your name into a conversation you had no part in. Here's why this matters. We talk about the things living rent-free in our heads, not as a choice, just as a consequence of thinking about something a lot. When someone occupies real mental space, they leak into your conversations. You quote them without realizing it. You compare things to them, you bring them up, and then catch yourself and wonder why you did. She's not dropping your name strategically. She's doing it because you're already there, in the background, running quietly. And the fact that she gets flustered when it gets noticed, that's not guilt. That's confirmation. This is exactly the kind of thing that becomes obvious once you understand how women communicate interest indirectly. If you want a complete framework for reading what's real versus what's performance, what she actually feels versus what she's showing you to manage your behavior, the book I mentioned at the top, The Truth Detector, goes deep on all of this. First link in the description. It was built specifically for situations where you can't just ask and you need to know anyway. Sign 6, and this one is going to reframe something you've probably experienced without ever knowing what it meant. She remembers things you said, not the big things. Anyone remembers the big things, the small things, the offhand comment you made 3 weeks ago about a restaurant you went to once, the name of your dog you mentioned once in passing, the thing you said you wanted to try someday that you'd already half forgotten about, and she brings it up, casually, like it's nothing. Didn't you say you wanted to try that? Or wasn't that the place you mentioned? And you're standing there slightly stunned because you don't even remember saying it. Here's the reality. Memory is selective. The brain doesn't store everything. It stores what it's been told is important. And importance is decided by emotion. The things that carry emotional weight get filed. The things that don't get dropped. So when she remembers the small throwaway detail you shared without thinking, that detail got filed because you were already emotionally significant to her when you said it. This is something a lot of men brush past because it feels like a small thing. It's not. It's one of the clearest windows into where her head actually is. Not what she tells you, not how she acts when she's performing, but what her brain quietly decided to hold on to when she wasn't thinking about it. The tricky part is that once you know this, you might start testing it. Start dropping small details to see what she picks up. And look, that's not wrong. But be careful not to turn it into a game, because the second you start engineering the signals instead of reading them, you're in your head and out of the moment, and presence is more attractive than any tactic. So pay attention instead. Notice what she recalls. Notice what she references, because her memory is telling you something her mouth hasn't said yet. Sign 7. The most telling of all, because it only shows up when she's already decided something about you, even if she hasn't admitted it to herself yet. She gets weird when other women are around you. Not dramatic, not obvious. She doesn't make a scene or say anything direct, because that would require admitting she cares, and she's not ready to do that. But watch closely. When another woman enters the conversation, something shifts in her. She gets quieter or suddenly louder. She positions herself slightly differently. She finds a reason to re-enter the conversation, to say something that reminds the room she exists, that reminds you she exists. She might laugh a little harder at your next joke. She might subtly steer the topic back to something the two of you share. This is territorial behavior, and it runs deep. Deeper than logic, deeper than whatever cool, unbothered image she's trying to project, because the unbothered act is easy to maintain when there's no competition in the room. The moment competition shows up, the mask slips, just slightly, and in that slip is the truth. Evolutionary psychologists have studied this for decades, the way humans respond to perceived competition for someone they're invested in. The response is instinctive, not calculated. She's not thinking, I need to make a move. She's just reacting. And that reaction, that small involuntary shift in her behavior, that's the clearest signal you'll ever get that what she feels is real, not performed. The mistake men make here is either ignoring it completely or overcorrecting, suddenly giving her all the attention to make her feel secure. Both miss the point. If you ignore it, you leave a signal unread. If you rush to reassure her, you hand over your power the same way you do when you over-validate too fast. The right move is to notice it, let her feel it for a moment, and then naturally, without making it a thing, give her a reason to relax. Not because she earned it, because you chose to. That distinction is everything. So let's bring this all the way back to where we started. You've been walking through life fluent in words and illiterate in everything else, and it's cost you. Not because you're not smart, but because nobody ever taught you that attraction is a language women speak almost entirely without speaking. The glances, the memory, the teasing, the nervousness that looks like distance, the territorial shift when another woman enters the room. She's been talking to you this whole time. You just didn't have the translation. Here's the part that stings a little. Knowing the signs is only half of it. The other half is knowing what to do with them, and more importantly, knowing the difference between a woman who's genuinely attracted and one who's just keeping you warm while she figures out what she actually wants. That second type exists, and she'll give you most of these same signs while having absolutely no intention of following through. That's exactly why I wrote The Truth Detector. Not to make you paranoid, but to make you clear. Clear on what's real, what's performance, and what's just a woman who hasn't decided yet and is keeping her options open at your expense. It goes deeper than any video can in 20 minutes. First link in the description. If you clicked on this video because you're trying to figure out where you actually stand with someone specific, that book will give you the answer faster than waiting will. Look, some of you already know. You've been reading these signs for weeks on a particular person. You've noticed the glances, the memory, the weird tension when someone else is around. You already know. You're just waiting for confirmation. So here it is. Trust what you've been seeing. Your gut has been reading her correctly. The only question now is what you're going to do about it. That's on you. Because at the end of all this, the psychology, the signs, the signals, what she's really attracted to isn't a guy who knows how to read her. It's a guy who knows himself well enough that her signals are interesting, but not necessary. A guy who would have been fine either way. You don't become that guy by chasing certainty. You become him by needing it less.